You don't belong here with that missing arm of yours, you defect. Get out now. The angry shout echoed throughout the store, causing me to instinctively shield my sister, Emily, next to me and look at the man in front of us. The man was looking down on Emily and me with an intimidating gaze. I'm sorry. Tears began to stream down my frightened sister's face. The moment I saw those tears, something inside me snapped. I've reached my breaking point. Then you were fired as of today. With a cold stare at the men, I said those words. My name is Kyle. Right after graduating from high school, I started working at a company as an employee. Hey, Kyle, I'm home. Hey, Emily, how was your day? Emily, my sister, just started working this year. Come here, Emily, I'll help you take it off. It's okay, I can do it by myself. But it's hard to do alone, isn't it? Come here. Jeez, Kyle, you're too overprotective. Emily sighed, slightly exasperated, and rolled up the sleeve of her left arm. Emily's left arm is a prosthetic. Moreover, she has only recently started using it, so Emily is still not quite used to putting it on and taking it off. When Emily said she wanted to live alone after becoming a working adult, I couldn't allow it. Our parents are no longer with us. So naturally, I worry about Emily a lot. See, it's off now. Thanks, Kyle. Emily carefully cradled the removed prosthetic arm with her right arm. Hey, Kyle, today was my first payday. Is that so? It's already been a month since you started working at that factory. Congratulations. What are you going to buy with your first paycheck? Well, first this. Here, Kyle, take this. This is... Emily handed me an envelope filled with cash. It's to pay back what you fronted for the prosthetic. It might be little by little, but I'll make sure to pay it back. You don't have to worry about it. No way. This is something I definitely want to pay for with my own money. Well. Also, Kyle, let's go out to eat on our next day. Official, remember that seafood restaurant we saw on TV? I'll treat you. Hey, that place is expensive. You don't need to do that. If you want to go, I'll treat you. Come on, that defeats the purpose. I want to give back for all the times you've taken care of me. Emily. I was incredibly happy that Emily cared so much about me, but it also made me feel a bit lonely. The next day, I talked about it with my coworker, Alex. Emily wants to treat me to some pretty good seafood on her entry-level salary. What do you think, Alex? Well, that sounds nice. You should go. Alex said with a bright smile. I've known her since high school, and she gets along well with Emily too. Given her familiarity with me and my sister, I was hoping for some eye-opening advice, but her straightforward opinion took me by surprise. I must have looked quite downcast, as Alex cocked her head in confusion after seeing my face. What's wrong? Aren't you happy? No, it's not that. It's just that, actually, I've also received the money Emily saved to pay me back for the prosthetic arm. I'm worried that if she spends so much, she won't have much money left for herself. I don't think there's anything to worry about. Really? Yes, because that's what Emily wants to do, right? You should accept her feelings. Maybe you're right. Look, if you're going to keep worrying about it, I'll go out to dinner with Emily in your place. What? No way, that's definitely not happening. All right, then stop fussing and let Emily treat you, okay, Kyle? Alex teased, smirking and tapping me lightly on the head. Okay, I get it. While I still felt a bit uneasy, I understood what Alex was trying to say. I decided to accept Emily's feelings. And so, the day came for Emily and me to go to the seafood restaurant. Kyle, are you ready? Yeah, ready whenever you are. I turned around as I responded. There stood Emily, dressed a bit more fashionably than usual. "Wow, Emily, you look nice." "Really? I don't look too childish. Are you sure it's okay?" "It's fine. You look beautiful." I couldn't help but marvel at how grown-up she had become. "Then, shall we get going?" I smiled, trying to mask the sudden surge of loneliness, and urged Emily on. We arrived at the restaurant and were seated at the counter in front of the open kitchen. We were quickly admitted thanks to Emily's reservation. "Could we start with a few chef's choice appetizers, please?" "Of course." The chef nodded at Emily's order and with skillful hands, prepared the appetizers and placed it in front of us. It was the best stuff I had ever tasted. "This is amazing. It's delicious, Kyle." "Yeah, it really is. Thanks, Emily, for bringing me to such a nice place." "Hey, are you crying, Kyle?" "No, it's just something in my eye." I tried to hide the tears welling up from the emotional moment, turning my face away from Emily. I caught the eye of the smiling chef, feeling a bit embarrassed. "By the way, how's work going? Are you managing okay?" "I'm doing fine. I'm a bit clumsy at times, but I'm getting used to it, no worries." Emily said this with a bright smile, but I knew something she didn't. Occasionally, Emily would come home with bruises here and there. I had once pressed her to tell me what was happening. "I'm just not used to the environment and the tasks, so I end up bumping into things here and there," Emily said as if it were nothing. True to Emily's words, the frequency of her coming home injured had decreased lately, but I still couldn't help but worry. "Emily, if anything tough happens at work, you need to tell me right away." "Geez, I told you I'm fine. You really worry too much, Kyle." "Sorry, was I being too persistent?" "No, it's because you're always there for me, Kyle, that I can keep trying my best. Thank you so much." "Emily." Tears began to well up in my eyes again. I guess I tend to get overly concerned when it comes to Emily. Emily's current job is at a factory that I helped her get through a connection at my company. They mainly assemble pianos there, and they've assigned Emily some simple tasks she can manage with one arm. Before Emily started working at the factory, I insisted that having a prosthetic arm would be definitely better, but Emily refused to let me pay for it. "Kyle, I want to work hard and pay for the prosthetic arm with my own money. Please, don't pay for it, please." "But Emily, it would be better to have the prosthetic sooner, don't you think, ideally, before you start working at the factory?" "I know, but..." Emily closed her mouth, a complex expression on her face. By this time, Emily had become less dependent on me. It wasn't long ago that she would run to me crying over the smallest things. "Kyle, I'm sorry, but I can't budge on this. I want to pay for the prosthetic with my own money. That's what I want to do." "All right, if you insist that much, we'll do it your way." "Really? Is that okay?" "Sure, but in exchange, let's get the prosthetic made right now." "Oh, what do you mean? I don't have that much saved up yet." Seeing Emily's confused and worried face, I gently placed my hand on her head. "Yeah, so I'll cover the initial costs. Once you start getting your salary, you can pay me back little by little, as long as it's not too hard on you." "Kyle." Tears started to roll down Emily's cheeks. "Thank you, I'll definitely pay you back." "It's okay if you don't, though." "No, I must. I absolutely will. You have to take it when I do. It's a promise." "Okay, I understand. I understand." I stroked Emily's head, comforting her as she began to cry. It hasn't been that long since that day, but lately, it feels like Emily is growing up at an incredible rate. As I gazed at Emily's face, she gave me a slightly troubled smile. "What's wrong, Kyle?" "I was just thinking, you've really grown up." "Of course I am. I'm an adult now, you know. I even want to live on my own." That's out of the question. Besides, you can commute from home for now, so there's no need to rush into living alone, right? Maybe you're right. I guess I'll keep relying on you a bit longer then, she said with a laugh. Perhaps she realized how earnest I had become. Emily looked at me with a mischievous smile. Kyle, thank you for supporting me this far. I might lean on you a lot more in the future, but today is on me, so eat up. Thank you, Emily. When Emily first started working, it wasn't just the injuries. She often looked exhausted when she came home. I had thought about convincing her to quit if this continued. But Emily has persevered and continued with her job. I felt a deep sense of emotion at Emily's growth. Today would surely be a memorable day for us siblings. As we enjoyed the delicious meal and had a great time, a man unexpectedly approached us from behind. Emily, what are you doing here? Good evening, Mr. Jones. Seeing the face of the man who approached, Emily's expression darkened instantly. It was rare to see Emily, who's usually so friendly, show such an attitude towards someone, which made me scrutinize the man's face closely. So, who's this guy, your boyfriend? No, that's not it. This is my brother. Mr. Jones glanced at me disdainfully. I didn't like his attitude, but considering he was someone from Emily's workplace, it seemed better not to stir up trouble. Are you from Emily's workplace? I'm her brother, Kyle. Nice to meet you. I'm Bill Jones, the factory manager. Mr. Jones seemed to be around my age. Despite being the manager, he was quite young. I remembered hearing that a veteran worker at Emily's factory had retired not long ago. Mr. Jones, Emily's always been grateful for your guidance, but let's leave work out of this since we're in a private setting and enjoy our time here today. Yeah, sure. I tried to casually steer the conversation away and distance us from him, but for some reason, Mr. Jones decided to sit down next to Emily. Feeling uneasy about it, I turned my attention back to Emily. Emily, would you like to order something new? Yeah, let's see, what should we get? Emily smiled awkwardly, leaning towards me as if she felt uncomfortable next to Mr. Jones. He was watching her intently with a somewhat oppressive gaze. Emily, could you look this way for a second? What? Oh, just as I thought. There's an eyelash on your cheek. Go to the restroom and take it off. Oh, sorry, and thank you. I'll be right back. Taking the opportunity while Emily was away, I moved to her seat. I somehow felt it wasn't right to leave Emily and this man side by side. You seem to get along well with your sister. I guess. It's normal, I think. Now I see. It's because you spoil her so much that she's always so coddled. His gaze felt unsettling, as if he was assessing me. At this point, I had a hunch. The reason Emily often looked unhappy when she came home from work must be because of this man. Kyle, sorry for the wait, and thanks. It's okay, no worries. Emily seemed to understand my actions upon returning from the restroom. Though a bit bewildered, she took the seat I had been in. Excuse me, could we get a couple more Chef's Choice plates, please? Of course, just a moment. Chef's Choice. Mr. Jones let out a low chuckle as Emily placed her order with the chef. Someone as useless as you, who can't even carry a load, sure is living the high life. It's a special occasion today. Oh, despite dropping important parts every day and getting yelled at. His words revealed something I couldn't ignore. It seemed Emily was being made to carry loads at the factory. Excuse me, sir, may I have a word? What is it? Looking at Mr. Jones, who regarded me as if I were an annoyance, I couldn't help but glare back. Mr. Jones, Emily isn't suited for heavy lifting tasks. I was under the impression that your factory was aware of this and hired her with that understanding. Weren't you aware of this? What are you talking about? We're paying her a salary. We can afford to give anyone special treatment, can we?" After belittling me with those words, he deliberately leaned over to Emily, grinning slyly. "It's disgusting, really. I have to tolerate your uselessness at work, and here you are, dining in a fancy place." I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A defective product like you with only one arm doesn't belong here. Get out now." "Hey, Mr. Jones, please don't raise your voice." Instinctively, I shielded Emily and moved away from Mr. Jones. "Emily, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry, I'm so sorry." Emily tried to hold back, but her voice trembled, and tears spilled from her eyes. "Emily, don't apologize. There's no need for you to be sorry." I wrapped an arm around Emily's shoulder, offering her a handkerchief. She weakly accepted it and stifled a sob. Why should Emily have to endure such treatment? It was unjust. Emily didn't choose to be one-armed. Hearing her cry, my mind drifted back to the dreadful memory of the accident. It happened several years ago. That day, Emily was headed to a piano competition with our parents. "Kyle, can you come today?" "Sorry, I've got a practice match with a club." "I see, then, it can't be helped. Let's celebrate when I get back. You're bound to win something, Emily." "Okay, I'll do my best. Thanks, Kyle. I'm off then." She waved with a smile, joining our parents in the car. Little did I know that tragedy would strike soon after. Dad, Mom, Emily. Suddenly called by the club advisor, I was faced with an unbearable truth. I rushed to the hospital I was directed to, screaming in front of the operating room. "You must be Kyle, right?" "Yes, that's me. Doctor, how are my parents and my sister?" "I'm sorry. Unfortunately, your parents." "It can't be." My mind went blank. It was a car accident. I was told they collided head-on with a car that veered into their lane. Despite all medical efforts, my parents were gone. And Kyle, please brace yourself. About your sister, Emily. The reality the doctor revealed floored me. After a long surgery, Emily was the only one who miraculously survived. "Kyle, where?" "Emily, it's okay, I'm here." "That's good. Hey, Kyle, my left hand. It doesn't move and doesn't hurt at all. What happened to my left hand?" "Emily, it's okay, don't worry. Just rest for now. I'll always be by your side." Soon, her breathing evened out in sleep. Gently, I touched Emily's left shoulder. "Oh, Emily. Oh, Emily." Seeing Emily, with her arm completely missing from the elbow down, I couldn't hold back my tears. Emily had aspired to be a pianist. Both our parents and I always supported Emily's dream. The realization that such aspirations had been dashed caused me great distress. Despite knowing that neither our parents would return nor Emily's arm would come back, the sense of loss was overwhelming. After graduating from high school, I chose to work. "Kyle, are you sure you don't want to go to college?" "Yeah, it's fine. I didn't have a specific goal in mind. But Emily, you shouldn't give up on your dream of becoming a pianist." "But how can I?" With a near-tearful expression, Emily touched her shortened left arm. "My left hand, it's gone. How can I become a pianist now?" "That's not true. Once your surgical wounds heal, we'll get you a prosthetic arm, and then you can start practicing again. I'm sure you'll be able to play the piano again." "Really?" "Of course, Dad, Mom, and I will always be there to support you." "Thank you, Kyle." I was determined not to let Emily give up on her dream of becoming a pianist. Somehow, continuing to strive for her goal felt like a way to maintain a connection with our departed parents. And so began our life together as siblings. "Kyle, the pot's burning, burning." "Oh, sorry, Emily. It's dangerous. Don't touch it." At first, we struggled with unfamiliar household chores. "Enough, I've come to help. It's unfair to Emily to eat such food." "Sorry, Alex. I appreciate the help." Seeing my never-improving culinary skills, Alex offered a helping hand out of concern. "From now on, I'll take care of the laundry, so don't you dare touch it, Kyle." "But that's too much." "I'm not doing this for you. Emily asked me for help. Really, you should be more considerate even if you're siblings." "Right, sorry." Regardless of our sibling bond, Emily was a girl of a certain age. There might be things she found hard to discuss with me. While Alex's help with chores was invaluable, what I truly appreciated was her willingness to listen to Emily's concerns. Through it all, we've supported each other and persevered together. Why should someone like Mr. Jones, who knew nothing about us, say such things to us? Seeing Emily cry under his intimidation, something inside me snapped. "Mr. Jones." As I stood up, protecting Emily, I turned to face Mr. Jones. "Yeah, what is it, big bro?" "Don't call me big bro. It makes me sick." "Sorry, big bro." Mr. Jones's condescending laughter pushed me past my limit. "Mr. Jones, you are fired as of today." "What? What are you talking about?" His eyes widened in shock at my words. "Kyle." Emily looked up at me, worried. "Emily, let's go." "Wait a minute, what do you mean by that?" As we attempted to leave, Mr. Jones called out to us in a panic. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I pulled out my wallet, fetched a business card, and tossed it at him. "This is no way you are. I'll be reporting your behavior. Even if the higher-ups forgive you, I never will. Remember that." Ignoring Mr. Jones as he stuttered and gaped after seeing my business card, Emily and I settled our bill at the restaurant and left. We then visited Alex's house to discuss a certain matter. "Welcome, I've been waiting. Emily, are you okay? Oh dear, you've cried so much. Poor thing." "Alex, It's okay. Alex and Kyle will protect you. You don't have to worry about anything now." Alex welcomed us at the door and embraced the crying Emily. "Kyle, I got the gist over the phone, but let's talk more once you've settled down." "Sure." While holding Emily, I could see the fury in Alex's eyes. Soon after, Alex took Emily to the bedroom and put her to bed. Sitting in the living room and waiting for Alex, she came over and sat down on the sofa opposite me with a sigh. "Did you manage to get anything out of Emily?" "Yes, but you might not want to hear it. She made me promise not to tell you," crying. "I have a rough idea. Thanks, Alex." Alex avoided eye contact with me, as if disgusted. It seemed likely. The bruises on Emily's body were probably not just from dropping things, but from other incidents too. That man, he can't be forgiven. "I understand. Let's go to the factory together tomorrow." "Are you sure, Alex?" "Kyle, I feel the same way as you." "Okay, thanks." Finally making eye contact, we nodded in understanding. Our resolve was unified. Tomorrow, we would confront that man. The next day, Emily, Alex, and I went to the piano factory. Mr. Smith. From the back, Mr. Jones, having spotted us, rushed over. As Emily flinched, Alex and I shielded her and faced Mr. Jones. "Thank you so much for coming. I had no idea you were an employee of Carter Music. I deeply apologize for my rudeness yesterday." What a turnaround from yesterday's attitude. Mr. Jones kept smiling and apologizing to me. I was speechless at his sudden change of heart. Well, it's not surprising. The company where Alex and I work is a major client of this factory. Moreover, It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say they are almost exclusively a prime contracting company. Mr. Jones, before apologizing to me, could you please apologize to Emily for yesterday and for everything before that? Well, that is. With a look that said I knew everything, I stared him down. Sweating, Mr. Jones looked around nervously. Just so you know, there's no escaping this. What's with you? Oh, my apologies. I haven't introduced myself. You're Alex. Could it be you are? Mr. Jones was shocked as he took Alex's business card. The current president of Carter Music is my father, and I work here as the prospective president. Is there a problem? No, of course not. I'm terribly sorry. So you see, you're missing the point. The person you really need to apologize to is Alex. Kyle, it's okay. I'm fine now. From behind Alex and me, Emily let out a soft cry. Then, staring down Mr. Jones with all her might, she stepped in front of us. Mr. Jones, I am resigning from this factory as of today. Though my time here was short, I am grateful for the opportunity. Saying that, Emily apologized profoundly. What are you talking about all of a sudden? It's not like it matters if someone useless like you leaves. I couldn't care less. Don't come crying back to me. Well, we'll see who ends up regretting this. Remember what I said about reporting this matter to higher-ups. What? Meaning, I've already informed our CEO about this issue. Naturally, our dealings are official. The official documents will follow. You're finished. I've never seen my father so furious before. No, please. Hearing Alex's words, Mr. Jones collapsed to his knees, his face turning pale with despair. While he was visibly dejected, I whispered to him in a way Emily couldn't hear. Listen, I will never forgive you for laying a hand on Emily. Don't you dare show your face to Emily and me ever again. Yes, sir. Leaving a diminished Mr. Jones behind, we left the factory. Some time later, Emily officially resigned from the piano factory and joined the company where Alex and I work. Here, Emily, this will be your station. Well, such a magnificent piano. All the attachments to the prosthetic hand for playing music are in place. Emily, do you think you can manage? Of course. Thank you so much for preparing such a wonderful place for me, Alex and Kyle. I'll do my best. Knowing Emily's situation, Alex's father, the president of Carter Music, started a new business venture for her. That venture was the company's own piano school. It focused on lessons for people with disabilities like Emily's, and she was set to teach here. Emily had started playing the piano again, and through the lessons, she had quickly mastered playing with a prosthetic hand. Emily initially played and taught songs that could be played with the right hand only, but has now grown to the point of teaching advanced pieces that require both hands. After some time passed, it's finally time for Emily's pianist debut. Yay, I'll have some good news to share with Dad and Mom when I get home today. It's a dream come true for your family. Alex and I attended Emily's first concert as a professional pianist. Rumored as the miraculous prosthetic pianist, the public's response was immense, and today's concert tickets sold out immediately. Hey, why don't we go say hi in the dressing room first? Yeah, that's a good idea. I hope Emily isn't too nervous. Urged by Alex, we headed to Emily's dressing room. Knocking and entering, we were greeted by Emily's smiling face. Kyle, Alex, I'm so glad you came. Of course. Congratulations on today, Emily. After the concert, why don't you, Kyle, and I go out for a celebratory meal? Oh, about that, Alex. There's a staff party after the concert today, so I'm sorry, but you and Kyle should go have dinner together. That's a shame. Tough luck, Alex. Laughing at Alex's disappointment, I couldn't help but find it funny. Kyle, come here for a second. What's up, Emily? While I was still chuckling, Emily grabbed my arm and pulled me to a corner of the room. She seemed to have something on her mind. I listened attentively. Kyle, you know this is the perfect opportunity, right? Opportunity for what? Geez, Kyle, you and Alex are alone today. It's the perfect chance to confess. Hut, Emily, since when did you know about? From the very beginning. Kyle, you always put others first, didn't you? I'm fine now, okay. Emily said this with a cheerful smile. Don't worry, Kyle. I think you two definitely have mutual feelings for each other. Is that so? What are you two whispering about over there? It's nothing. I blurted out, suddenly too conscious to look Alex in the eye. What's wrong? Your face is all red. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, I managed to respond. Emily watched our exchange with a beaming smile, clearly amused by the situation. On this day, as Emily's dream came true, it seemed my role as her steadfast supporter might have come to an end. As for what happens next between Alex and me, becoming much closer than ever before, well, that's a story for another time. Won't you just leave? Don't you think it's presumptuous for a low-educated fool to come here and ask for an interview? You're too idiot to be here. Go home. After my mom passed away, I started working right after graduation from high school. I was fired from my job due to harassment from my boss and looked down upon in job interviews. My life was a series of misfortunes. Nothing ever went right for me. But I kept trying and didn't give up. Education doesn't matter. What's important is having a compassionate heart. Now, I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. My name is Ken. I live with my beloved younger sister Emily, who is 6 years younger than me, and our mom. We grew up in a single-parent household due to complex family circumstances. Our parents divorced before I could remember my father. I don't recall my father's face, and to spare us any discomfort, my mom never showed us a single photo of him. Being a single-parent family, my mom worked part-time during the day and came back in the evening. We lived on welfare, but my sister and I always admired our mother's hard work. She was a graduate of a prestigious university. Additionally, she was the best home tutor I could ever boast about. Ever since I was in elementary school, I used to ask her various questions about my studies, but she never gave me the answers easily. Mom, this math problem is just too difficult for me. Ken, this is how it is, she'd say. She never actually gave the answer. This was always the case. She would give me hints to lead me to the answer myself. I got it. The answer is C. Math is so interesting. Exactly right. Now that you've got the answer, let's have dinner. Emily must be hungry too. My mom was good at math and science. Maybe that influenced me, and I gradually started liking those subjects too. Mom, I want to go to a science university, a national one, of course, because it's cheaper. Do you think I can make it? I want to get a job in a company and help you out. Our lives will become much richer. Of course, you can do it, Ken. I'll support you so you can go to your desired school. Go for it with all your might. I must have been her hope. In my last winter of high school, right before Christmas, when I was studying hard for my dream university, my mom was cleaning the bathroom, and Emily, watching her, said, "I want to help," as she stood by. Suddenly, Emily came into my room. "Ken, come quick, Mom. I ran to the bathroom. There, my mom had collapsed. We called an ambulance immediately, but it was too late. She never came back home. The cause was a sudden subarachnoid hemorrhage. Without showing any signs, she always warmly watched over us, her children. With the help of relatives, we managed to hold the funeral. I was in a state of apathy. Emily, still in her last year of elementary school, took time to accept the reality. Our aunt said, "If there's anything, please let me know," but though her words were kind, she lived far away and we hadn't met much, so I only thanked her. After the funeral, Christmas came and went, and the new year began. I started to think about the savings Mom had left for us, our current life, and our future, trying to find answers on my own. On the first day back to school after the winter holidays, I told my homeroom teacher in the teacher's room, "I've decided to give up on going to ABC University." "Ken, it's unfortunate about your mom, but are you sure? It's ABC University. You have the academic ability to get in. I think you might regret this." "It's okay. I'll work and take care of my sister. This is the best solution I've come up with. I have no regrets." "I see. Understood. I'll report this to the career guidance teacher. We're here to support you. Feel free to consult us about anything, no matter how small." "Thank you." After leaving the teacher's room, I ran to the back of the gymnasium. I couldn't stop crying over the decision I had made by myself. I came home with my eyes swollen from crying. "Well, what's that smell? It smells like curry." "I'm home." "Oh, welcome back, Kim. I tried making curry for the first time, just like Mom used to. It's chicken curry because chicken is cheap." "Really? That's great, Emily. But isn't it a bit burnt?" "Don't worry about it. Let's eat." The rice was watery and the curry was slightly burnt. It was Emily's first attempt at cooking, and she's only in 6th grade. "Emily, I've decided to start working from spring." "Wait, what about ABC University? Aren't you going there?" "This is the decision I've come to after much thought. It's okay." "Then, I'll go to ABC University." "Ha ha, you got me there. I'll make sure to support you, Emily." Eating the slightly burnt chicken curry, Emily's declaration to pursue further education cleared away all the gloom I had been feeling. From then on, Emily started making lunch for me as well. Despite being only in 6th grade, she accepted reality very maturely. I'm proud to have such a capable sister. The sudden shift from wanting to go to college to deciding to work. Finding a job was tough, but with the help of my homeroom teacher and the career guidance teacher, I somehow managed to secure a position at a local company. My name is Ken. As a new employee at a local company, I was among the youngest. Especially in the sales department where I was assigned, the age gap with everyone else was significantly large. My closest colleague was Chris, 25 years old, who was my supervisor. Chris was quite a character. "Chris, I'm looking forward to working with you." 18, hey, high school graduate. "Yes, I just graduated from high school." I see, a high school grad. Everyone else here has a college degree." He was pretty assertive from day one. Despite the fact that I had gone through the proper job hunting process and joined after graduating from high school. From then on, I woke up at 5 a.m. every day, took the breakfast and lunch Emily had prepared the day before, and left the house. I arrived at the office earlier than anyone else, started by checking the sales reports, cleaned the toilets, and served drinks to the clients who visited, working harder than anyone else. Although it was essentially menial work, I made sure to do it diligently. And almost every day, Chris, my supervisor, would harass me in ways that are all too common in companies. "Ken, did you prepare the presentation materials for Company B?" "Yes, here they are." "What's this? Did I really ask you to prepare something like this?" "I tried to follow your instructions." "It's not about trying. No one's going to look at this. It's back to square one. Duh, now I have to spend extra effort on this. This is what I don't like high school grads. I'll report this to the department head, Edward." Chris was close to Edward. Upon close observation, Chris's skill at sucking up to Edward was evident. However, As soon as Edward was away, Chris would start bad-mouthing him to me. "You know, Edward is so useless. I wish he'd get transferred out soon." I was always amazed at Chris's two-faced nature. One lunch break, on a particularly sunny day. On the company building's rooftop bench, I ate the lunch that Emily had made for me as usual. "Today's lunch is chicken curry. I should have improved since last time. Don't lose to C, and do your best at work," the message inside read. The initial C unmistakably referred to Chris. I had talked to Emily about having such a boss, and she always listened carefully. "The chicken curry has indeed improved. It's much tastier than before." After enjoying the meal, I cleaned the lunchbox and returned to my desk at work. Then Chris approached me, asking, "Smells like curry. What did you have for lunch, Ken?" "Yes, my sister made me chicken curry for lunch. It was delicious." "What are you thinking, man? We have a meeting with a client soon. You plan to meet them smelling like curry. You're not considerate at all. Like brother, like sister. This is why I can't stand high school grads. Forget it. I won't take you with me. I'll go meet the client alone. Just remember, if we don't get this deal, it's your fault." Chris, filled with anger, left to meet the client alone. I felt terribly down, but as time passed, Chris returned around 4 p.m. This is the worst. There's no way we're getting that deal. Damn it. I'll make sure to report this to Edward. It was impossible to secure the deal with the intense curry smell you and your sister create. Chris, I admit my fault, but my sister has nothing to do with this. Please take that back. Oh, what's this? You have a sister complex. I'll include that in my report to Edward. For the first time, I couldn't hold back and voiced my opinion to my boss after enduring his constant bullying and even insults towards Emily. I was well aware that he reported both true and false information to Edward. I realized I disliked Chris about 6 months after starting my job. The days of enduring continued. The spendable income was low, and the bonus was merely nominal. 1 year and 5 months had passed since I started working. As usual, I woke up at 5 a.m., washed my face, and was getting ready for work when Emily woke up. "Good morning. Don't push yourself too hard. You look tired. You're going to get scolded by C again, hey." "Do you think so? Lately, I've mastered how to deal with C, like it's a final boss in a game. I've got my strategy down." "If you say so." Was Emily's comment some kind of premonition? Of course, there was no strategy for handling Chris. Reluctantly, I headed to work, expecting to be scolded again. A 15-minute walk from our house spread a residential area, and there was a park where my mother, Emily, and I used to play. It was on my way to work. Sometimes, I'd sit on a park bench alone in the morning and think. Then, I saw an elderly woman suddenly fall forward on the bench. Ma'am, are you okay?" I rushed to help her, making sure she could breathe easily by holding her in a comfortable position. "Oh, my head hurts." "Head," I gasped. "It might be an acute subarachnoid hemorrhage, just like my mother." This was serious. I quickly took out my phone to call an ambulance and rushed to buy some water. "Ma'am, I've called an ambulance. Here, drink this." "Oh, thank you." She managed to sip a little water. She was conscious, but I couldn't let my guard down. Having lost my beloved mother, I had learned what to do in case someone suddenly collapsed. The key was to keep talking to them. Talk to them, make them comfortable, and gather the essentials. Though the elderly woman was a stranger, I didn't want her to end up like my mother. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics asked, "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman had been out for a walk and didn't have any identification or a phone with her. Thoughts of work crossed my mind, but human life comes first. I left a message about the situation to the company, and decided to go with the elderly woman. May I join her in the ambulance? We'd appreciate that. Thank you. We arrived at the emergency hospital. The elderly woman was transported on a stretcher with a drip and an oxygen mask. While the doctor was attending to her, I felt that a message wasn't enough, so I called the company directly to inform them I'd be late. A few hours later, the doctor who had been treating the elderly woman came out. She's suffering from dehydration. It's been quite hot these days. She'll need to be hospitalized for 3 or 4 days, but she's conscious and stable now. You can even talk to her. As a doctor, I'm grateful for your courageous act of calling an ambulance and accompanying her. It's nothing. I'm just glad she's okay. The lady wants to speak with you. Will you see her? I'll just say a quick hello and then leave. I visited the elderly woman in her room. Thank you. Thanks to you, I feel like I've been given a bit more time to live. You're dressed for work, aren't you? What's your name? I'm Ken. I'll remember that. Thank you so much. I quickly took a taxi from the station in front of the park and rushed to the company. I arrived just before noon, at 11:40 a.m. Good morning. I apologize for being significantly late. As expected, Chris was furious. Ken, you're late because you were helping some random old lady. Do you know what day it is? Yes, we have a presentation at Company C this afternoon. I prepared the presentation materials at home last night. They're right here. Which is more important to you, random old lady with not much time left or the presentation at Company C? No, I thought saving a life was the priority. Playing the hero. Hey, you're fired. What? You chose that old lady over a business deal, right? We don't need a salesman like that. President Parker and Edward are waiting for you in the meeting room. Go and tell them your heroic story. I went to the meeting room as soon as I arrived. Just as Chris said, they informed me I was fired. No matter how much I explained the situation, it was futile. Chris and Edward, always looking to find fault, were in cahoots. There was no doubt that Chris had already reported the situation to President Parker. That day, I returned home, frustrated and in tears after receiving the unjust dismissal. I'm home. Welcome back. I made your favorite chicken. What's wrong? Did Chris fire you? What? It's written all over your face. You've always been easy to read. There's nothing quite as frightening as a woman's intuition. I explained to Emily what happened and why I was fired. She understood the situation completely and then said, "When one door closes, another opens. We learned that in class today. You did a good thing by saving a life. If that's the answer you came up with, I support my kind brother. When one door closes, another opens, huh?" Emily's growth as a matured lady and her intuition never ceased to amaze me. I'm always being encouraged by her. The chicken curry I ate the next morning, the spices spread through my mouth, making it the best taste I've ever experienced. I resigned at the end of the month. I'm going to start job hunting, but I'll still have some free time. Teach me how to make your special chicken curry. I went to the supermarket to buy ingredients. I wanted to sit on the bench in the park I used to pass through on my way to work and think about what to do next. When I entered the park, someone was already sitting on the bench. Not today, then. No problem, I'll come back later. Just as I was about to head to the supermarket and leave the spot. Ken. Yes. The person on the bench was the elderly woman I had helped the other day. She came over and started talking to me. We sat on the bench and talked about recent events at leisure. She, now fully recovered, seemed even more interested in me, asking various questions that made me wonder, why would she ask that? In the course of our conversation, I accidentally let slip that I had been fired from my job. I know the president of D Company. What? The famous local D Company. If you're not busy, why don't you try applying there? I'll let the president know that for you. Apply to D Company, that famous trading company. There's no way a high school graduate, could do that. What is she talking about? Trying to leave the situation gracefully, I said, well, it's great to see you're doing well. I'll give it a try. Sort of a commemorative application, and then I took my leave. 3 weeks later, the interview day at D Company arrived. I had studied up on D Company and prepared as best I could. Well, so this is D Company. Their building was a 200-meter tall skyscraper. The first floor housed a convenience store, restaurants, a lobby for business discussions, and more, making me feel utterly out of place. Well, it's just a commemorative application. I guess I would have the door slammed in my face. Haha. I approached the receptionist on the first floor and said, "Excuse me, I'm Ken, here for a job interview today." 2 minutes later, a male interviewer came down. "You must be Ken. I'm Brian, and I'll be conducting your interview today. Please, this way." We took the elevator to the interview venue. It was a meeting room on the 10th floor. On the way there, Brian had been friendly, and we had light conversation. "Please have a seat here. Relax, okay?" "Thank you." It seems he had already noticed how tense I was. "Then, I'll take a look at your resume." "Yes." Soon after opening the envelope and seeing my resume, Brian's expression turned somewhat grim. "So, Ken, you entered the workforce right after graduating high school?" "Yes, due to certain circumstances, I started working immediately." "Well, it's tough for high school graduates at our company. This must be some mistake. Did you see the convenience store on the first floor? Maybe you got mixed up with an interview there." "No, I'm certain I'm in the right place." "It's going to be difficult for us to hire you. Do you understand your place?" I do. There are many people who work hard even though they only have a high school diploma. Is it really necessary to have a college degree?" That's annoying." Brian put the resume back into the envelope and handed it back to me dismissively. "Wouldn't you rather leave? Don't you think it's presumptuous for someone with a low education to come here for an interview? You're too idiot to be here. Go home." At the moment I was yelled at, the door was opened. What?" That was the first thing I blurted out. The elderly woman I had helped was there in a suit. Another man was standing there too. Hello, President Thompson. I heard you telling Ken to leave just now. I think the one who should be leaving is you." Me. "That's enough for today. You may leave. Make sure to calm down your thought." From the conversation, it was clear the man was the president of D Company. "President Thompson, Margaret, what's going on here?" I recommended Ken to President Thompson. "Was that inconvenient for you?" "No, not at all." Don't judge people by their academic background. What kind of person are you? Leave now." Brian turned pale and left the room. "I'm sorry for startling you like this. The president I mentioned is actually my husband. Thank you so much for helping my wife, Margaret, when she fell ill." President Thompson continued. "I had to say that, or I thought you wouldn't apply for our company. When we talked on the park bench, I hoped you would join us. We wanted someone like you." The elderly woman I had helped was Margaret, the wife of D Company's president and also the head of HR. She had a keen eye for people. The meeting with them felt more like a casual chat than an interview. When one door closes, another opens. I was officially hired to work in the sales department at D Company. It felt like a dream. The company culture was entirely different. It was a comfortable working environment for me. I would occasionally run into Margaret at the entrance. "Ken, how's work going? Getting the hang of it?" "Yes, Margaret, I'm enjoying it and being myself. Great. 5 years passed. My income got stable, allowing me to plan for the future. Emily was now in her 3rd year of high school. Her skill of making lunchbox improved with her age and experience. I appreciated it every day, looking forward to my meal. Today's sandwich has a star shape. What does that mean? Later, President Thompson called me in. Margaret was there too. Ken, there's an upcoming presentation event with various companies, big and small. Would you like to give it a try? Me. Your presentation skills have untapped potential. I recommended you to President Thompson again. I'm sure you'll achieve great results. Thank you, Margaret. I'll do my best. Haha, don't be so formal. The star mark in Emily's lunchbox makes sense now. A month later, fully prepared, I attended the event. Despite the large crowd, I remained composed. Isn't that? It was Chris, my former direct supervisor. He was also attending the event. We looked at each other. Chris glared at me as soon as he recognized me. I guess Chris is also doing his best, but I have my own path to follow. I can't lose. Undeterred, I presented in my own way. I secured a contract with one of the largest corporations attending. I had outperformed Chris, who had a college degree. Luck is part of skill. Joining D Company might have been luck, but I always acted thoughtfully and decisively beyond that. I never belittle people. Nor do I look down on them. President Thompson and Margaret had been observing my daily conduct. Those who watch do so attentively, noticing even the smallest details. Both President Thompson and Margaret were thrilled with the contract I secured with a major corporation. At a young age, I was promoted to sales manager at an unprecedented speed. Now, I'm in a position to lead others. When teaching others, I never give away the answers easily. I provide hints and encourage them to find the answers by themselves. This was a lesson from my late mother. The following year, my sister Emily was enrolled to the National ABC University, our mother's alma mater. She may be a bit of a seer with an exceptional intuition, but as her only brother, I want to watch over her slowly until she graduates from university. You don't belong in a hotel like this. Jeff continued with that attitude, looking down on me. Then, Sarah approached him and pulled something out of her purse. So you are Jeff, she stated. She handed him the item she had taken out. He was so taken aback that he was speechless. My name is Michael. I work as an office worker. Sarah and I have been married for a year, and although we get along well, there's been one concern. It's about how busy my job is. Being naturally diligent and dedicated to my work, I've gained considerable trust from the company, albeit self-proclaimed. However, this meant I was constantly busy from morning till night, unable to spend time with her. Staying at the office past midnight wasn't unusual, which worried her a lot. When I called to say I'd be late that day, her voice was filled with anxiety. Are you okay? I'm totally fine, don't worry. But you must be getting very little sleep lately. Well, I'm managing somehow. The thought of you collapsing worries me so much. I think things will settle down a bit once I get through the current project. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine. Let's save up and go on that overseas trip soon. I put on a brave face, pushing myself a bit. The overseas trip was a promise I made to her when we got married. I promised to take her abroad since she had never been. We were close to our savings goal for the trip. But given how busy work has been, it might still be a while before we can go. Then one day, I caught a cold from being too engrossed in work. I knew exactly who I got it from. My boss, Jeff, was to blame. With his snarky attitude, He would grumble about even the smallest dissatisfaction. He approached me, coughing, to strike up a conversation. While I was busy with my own tasks, Jeff seemed to be making snide remarks as if trying to pass his cold on to me. "Jeff, you're clearly coughing a lot. At least wear a mask." "Shut up. I can't stand wearing something so suffocating." He continued to yell at me, spraying droplets as he spoke. Amidst such behavior, I ended up catching a cold. It's a wonder I didn't get sick sooner with that kind of exposure. I was feverish and in no shape to work. Feeling guilty but overwhelmed, I decided to take some time off. Seeing me like that, President Thompson suggested that I take a long vacation, considering the circumstances. He appreciated my hard work and wanted me to have some time off. I was surprised to receive such kind words. When I told Sarah about the long vacation, she was overjoyed. "Now you can finally take it easy. That's wonderful. It's unfortunate that I got sick, but the long vacation is a blessing. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise," Sarah said, all smiles. She was just happy that I finally had some time to rest. I felt grateful, but also a bit guilty. It was clear evidence of her concern. Seeing my gloomy expression, she leaned in and spoke. "Hey, since we have the chance, why don't we go on a trip using this time off? The overseas trip we promised. That might be too much to prepare for on short notice. Let's go somewhere within the country." I thought it was a great idea. If we missed this chance, who knows when we'd be able to travel again. I nodded eagerly to her suggestion. We may not get another chance like this, so let's do it. Yay, it's decided. Let's start looking up right away. Just so you know, we'll go after I've recovered from this cold. I know, I'm not that heartless, she replied. The promised overseas trip would have to wait, but finally, we could spend some quality time together. I rested fully, and the cold was gone in no time. Few days after my recovery, we splurged on a stay at a luxury hotel. It was a place we decided on after much research and discussion, looking through the internet and magazines. After checking our luggage at the hotel, we went sightseeing. We enjoyed local delicacies, visited museums, and savored each experience thoroughly. Everything was enjoyable and fulfilling. I was glad we came. It felt like I had not laughed this much in a long time. A different sense of fulfillment filled me, unlike when I was working. Seeing her having fun just like me made me feel happy, but also a bit guilty. "I'm sorry, Sarah. What's wrong all of a sudden?" "I've been so caught up with work, I haven't been able to make time for us." I opened up about my true feelings to Sarah as we walked side by side. But Sarah didn't seem to mind at all. She looked at me with a serious face and laughed. "I love you for your hard work, that's why we're together," she said. "Thank you. Besides, we're having a good time together now, so no problem," she said, giving me a hearty pat on the back. Her positivity had saved me so many times before. With those thoughts, we enjoyed our day out and returned to the hotel. That's when an unexpected person appeared. Well, if it isn't Michael," he said. "Jeff. I never imagined I'd run into someone from work, especially Jeff, on vacation." Our good mood was instantly ruined. He approached us with a smirk on his face. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Sarah's expression darkened. "You surely don't plan to stay in this hotel, do you?" "That was the plan. A person like you doesn't belong in a luxury hotel like this. You should leave," he said. He began to say things that were nonsensical to anyone listening. It was none of his business. "I've already made reservations, so that's not possible." "Ah, I see. You're getting ahead of yourself, aren't you?" I'll be excusing myself to head back to my room. I quickly tried to leave, walking past Jeff. I don't want to tarnish even a moment of this enjoyable time. However, Jeff grabs my arm to stop me. He seems annoyed by my attitude, clearly not pleased. Wait a minute. What is it? What kind of room are you staying in? Just a regular room, but... I knew it. Hearing my response, he claps his hands joyfully. This happy expression is a sign that the sarcasm is about to start. I've seen it numerous times at work. I'm staying in a suite. You can just see that I am staying there. It made no sense to me why he would go out of his way to say something like that. There's probably no valid reason for him. Mocking me is his sole purpose. You're really reaching, aren't you? This hotel is not suitable for someone like you. With the same tone he uses to throw shade at work, he continues to belittle me. I was filled with a desire to retort, but I found I couldn't speak. Wondering what was wrong, I reached for my throat with my right hand. Sarah was beside me, looking at me with concern. It seems that the stress had finally caught up with me, rendering me voiceless. I was surprised by the timing of this, shocked at myself. Can't you say anything back? Don't you find that pathetic? His mocking face filled me with frustration and anger. Memories of being ridiculed at work flooded back all at once. Then, Sarah, who had been watching from the side, approached him. So you're Jeff. I have something for you. Ha, something for me. She took a piece of paper out of her bag and handed it to Jeff. What's this? Seeing his surprise, I peeked at the paper and was equally astonished. It was a termination notice for Jeff. Why does she have something like this? Jeff and I both looked at her. You must be wondering how I know him and why I have this, right? Since I still couldn't speak, I nodded vigorously. Jeff, furious, confronted Sarah. That's right. What's the meaning of this? What authority do you have? While slapping the termination notice in right hand with his left hand, he shouted. She took a deep breath and began to explain. The president of your company, Mr. Thompson, often dines at the restaurant where I work. Mr. Thompson from our company. Sarah had been working at a traditional restaurant in a shopping district before we got married. I knew that, but I had no idea that Mr. Thompson was a regular customer. As we were chatting about various things, we coincidentally discovered that he is the president of your company. And why do you have my termination notice? Even if they got along well, that seemed like a separate issue. As if she had been waiting for this moment, she continued. I was discussing with Mr. Thompson how worried I was about my husband's demanding job. So that's how it was. I was finally able to let out a bit of my voice. I never imagined that for my sake, she would consult Mr. Thompson. He was concerned about you too and knew about the unfair treatment you were getting from Jeff. You hear that from Mr. Thompson. Jeff, feeling cornered, couldn't say anything in return. She pointed at the termination notice in his hand and spoke. He arranged for some time off for us, wanting us to have some undisturbed couples time. Furthermore, he said to use this if any harm came our way, and gave me the termination notice. I couldn't believe that he went to such lengths for us. It just goes to show that there are indeed people who notice and care. Jeff went silent, his face turning pale. But I never thought we'd have to use it so soon. No, I can't believe it. I refuse to. He said this and began making a call on his mobile phone. It seemed he was calling Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, Michael's wife handed me a termination notice, but this must be some kind of mistake, right? But she hadn't lied about a thing. From his phone, I could hear Mr. Thompson's reprimand. Realizing that the termination was indeed factual, his face went ashen. How could this? Murmuring so, Jeff collapsed to his knees. Well then, we'll be excusing ourselves. We headed to our room. Jeff remained in a daze until a hotel staff approached him. Once in our room, I apologized to her. I had no idea you went to such lengths for me. I'm sorry. Stop it. You didn't know because I didn't tell you, so it's only natural. That was true, but that wasn't why I was apologizing. I'm sorry for causing you so much worry to the extent of taking such action. I see. That's what you mean. Understanding my point, she smiled. Let's save up and go on a trip abroad together. You promised me that when we got married. She mused nostalgically. To fulfill that promise, you've been working so hard, haven't you? Well, it's a promise, after all. Being reminded made me feel somewhat shy. Though I was focused on my work, my biggest motivation was undoubtedly Sarah's presence. On my own, for my own sake, I couldn't have worked this hard. So I'll forgive you for not noticing my worries. Saying so, she flashed a brilliant smile and made a thumbs up. I truly felt fortunate to have married her. We enjoyed our meal provided by the hotel, savoring our private time as a couple. When we returned to work after the holiday, Jeff was nowhere to be seen. Just as the termination notice stated, he had indeed been fired. Given his nature of always making snide remarks to others besides me, everyone was thrilled at his departure. With someone who hardly worked and only made others uncomfortable gone, the workplace environment improved significantly. Overall motivation increased, leading to a significant boost in performance. I later heard that Jeff, who had stayed at the same hotel as us, was actually there with a woman he met at a club. Being married, the truth eventually reached his wife, leading to divorce proceedings. Combined with the shock of losing his job, Jeff seemingly lost the will to look for work. Now, it seems he's living a frugal life, scraping by on his savings, but who knows how long that will last. It goes without saying that a grim future awaits him. But enough about Jeff, let's get back to my story. Later on, I visited the restaurant where Sarah works. The truth is, this restaurant is where I first met her. I fell for her at first sight when she was working as a waitress, and exchanging contact information with her was the beginning. I remember being the most nervous I've ever been in my life when I asked her out on a date and confessed my feelings. And I clearly remember feeling the happiest I've ever been when she said yes. Since we started dating, I felt too shy to visit her restaurant often. But suddenly, I felt the urge to visit after a long time, and so I did. Back when I used to frequent the place, looking forward to the recommended dishes here was the highlight of my day. Sarah was surprised to see me after such a long time. Oh, what a rare sight. I missed the taste here. Could I get one of the recommended dishes, please? Sure thing. The place was bustling, especially since it was lunchtime. Then, unexpectedly, someone called out to me. A familiar voice came from behind. Hey, isn't that Michael? Har, Mr. Thompson. I knew he was a regular, but I never expected to bump into him here. Meeting him outside of work felt strangely surreal. Mr. Thompson, thank you so much. For what? I'm grateful for all your concern and support. As I expressed my thanks, he laughed heartily and clapped me on the shoulder. Don't worry about it. Really, I can't just. But more importantly, his expression turned serious. Working hard is important, but there are other things in life that you should pay attention to as well. Now, I understand the meaning of his words all too well. From a distance, Sarah was busily attending to customers. Being busy with work is precisely when you need to face what's truly important. This whole incident has made me acutely aware of that. There's no doubt that work is important. But that's not all there is to life. I haven't yet fulfilled our promise to go on an overseas trip, but I've decided to stop pushing myself too hard for it. Not just for my sake, but for Sarah's as well. Watching Sarah work, I made a firm resolution in my heart. I'll go talk to my brother, so you go buy me a coffee in the meantime. Understood. A man named Gary, who was in the midst of an affair with my wife Nancy at our house, claimed he was a mafia. I was taken to Gary's gang and, as ordered by Gary, I ran to buy coffee. However, as soon as I handed over the coffee, Gary's face twisted in anger. "You think you can get into our gang with this cheap coffee? Don't underestimate the Hawthorne gang, old man." I'm sorry. As I apologized, Gary threw it at me. Hearing Gary's loud voice, the gang members came out to see what was happening. As soon as they saw my face, they turned pale and started apologizing to me. "I'm really sorry, big brother. Our idiot has made a terrible mistake." Gary and Nancy were dumbfounded by the situation, not understanding what was happening. The executive stared sharply at Gary, who was dumbfounded, and began to explain. "My name is Tom. I'm a 43-year-old man who runs a restaurant. Though my life might not have been called normal up until now. I was told that my father passed away in an accident just after I was born, and I grew up living with just my mother. My mother was an optimistic woman who never lost her smile, always saying, 'Things will work out.' That life changed when I was in my 3rd year of junior high. During class, I was informed that my mother had collapsed in the street. I rushed to the hospital, but was told she had had a stroke and wouldn't live much longer. Suddenly faced with this, my head went blank, and the doctors and nurses asked me for contact information for any family or relatives, but as far as I knew, there were none. I had been told that my parents eloped and got married after a grand love affair, and there were absolutely no relatives from either side of the family. I ended up alone in the hospital room, watching my mother pass away. With the help of adults around me, I managed to hold a funeral, but I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't even cry, and my consciousness began to fade. Losing my beloved mother, I wondered how I was going to live from then on. I had been studying to go to high school, but now I probably had to find a job. As I was still unable to grasp the reality of being all alone and hung my head, I heard someone's voice. Did my sister pass away? When I turned around, there stood a large, intimidating man. I wondered who he was, but then he showed a gentle smile and ruffled my hair. The strength in his big, warm palms shook not just my head but my heart as well. "My name is Tyler. Your mother, she was my sister. If you've got nowhere to go, how about coming to my place?" I had never heard of my mother having a brother, so I was utterly bewildered. However, after paying respects to my mother's portrait, my uncle muttered softly. In the end, I couldn't do anything for my sister. Seeing his profile, which resembled my mother's, I finally succumbed to exhaustion and fell into a deep sleep. From then on, I was taken care of by my uncle. Arriving at my uncle's house, I was surprised to find it was a luxurious mansion, complete with a pool and opulent chandeliers. I'm not a good man. That's why my sister left home and cut ties with us. I'll let you stay here for a while, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. I couldn't agree with his words at all. How could a man who went to such lengths for me, a nephew he had just met, be anything but good? Seeing my expression, my uncle continued. Listen, I'm a mafia. To the society, I'm nothing but a nuisance. If you don't like it here, you can leave any time. I'll provide for your living expenses, so don't worry. Despite his gruff words, he looked me straight in the eyes and spoke his mind. I wanted to believe in this man. I want to stay here. All right, I couldn't do much for my sister, but I'll take care of you until you're on your own. Later, I learned that my uncle and my mother's father, my grandfather, used to be the head of this gang. Growing up in a noisy household, my mother tirelessly protected my younger brother, almost like a second mother, always taking care of him. However, as my mother grew up, she became troubled by her status as the daughter of a gang leader and eloped with my father, who had no connections to that world. My grandfather was furious that my mother had run away and disowned her. But my uncle, who was close to his sister, secretly had people look for her afterward. My uncle knew where my mother and I were living a few years ago, but by that time, he had already become the head of the gang himself. He didn't want to show us that he had become the kind of gang leader my mother had hated enough to flee from. Upon learning of my mother's sudden death, he reached out to me, having watched over us from afar in silence until then. My uncle regretted not being able to speak to my mother in her final moments and made it up to me by treating me well. In return, I took good care of my uncle's son, Tony, who is 10 years younger than me and became like a cousin to me, and I chose to live in the world of the mafia. Tony grew very attached to me and looked up to me as if I were his real brother. However, one day, 10 years after living with my uncle, a conflict arose between the gangs, and as I was out with my uncle, mafia from a rival gang chased after us. While protecting my uncle, I was cornered on the edge of a cliff about 3 meters high. To protect my uncle from the men about to attack us, I instinctively jumped off the cliff holding him. I felt severe pain in my legs the moment we landed, but from the top of the cliff, only the surprised and fearful faces of our pursuers peeked down, and they did not follow us. Thus, I saved my uncle from danger, but my legs suffered critical injuries. Since my uncle is a mafia, we couldn't go to a regular hospital for treatment. I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's not your fault, Uncle. I'm just glad you're safe. In the end, I was left with after effects, and my legs no longer function properly. I have no trouble walking slowly, but standing for long periods or moving over long distances is challenging. Afterward, my uncle entrusted me with a restaurant under the gang's control, saying, "Perhaps my sister was right after all. Tom, from now on, live quietly away from us." Thus, I immersed myself in managing the restaurant, eventually expanding to several outlets. Before I knew it, about 20 years had passed, and I was leading a peaceful life. An incident disrupted my peaceful life. It all started when my wife brought a mafia member into our home. My wife Nancy is 8 years younger than me and was a regular customer who came to my restaurant every day for lunch. Given my leg condition, the restaurant was renovated to be barrier-free, eliminating steps at the entrance and inside. Nancy's first visit was when she was injured, and she was moved by the thoughtful design throughout the restaurant, becoming a fan of our place. Since then, even after her leg healed, Nancy continued to come for meals every day. Naturally, Nancy and I started talking, and I was gradually drawn to her bright and kind personality. Realizing Nancy felt the same way, we dated for 2 years before getting married. I did inform my uncle, but he only said, "As long as Tom is happy, that's all that matters." I wonder if, in my uncle's eyes, I no longer exist since I left the house. Honestly, it feels lonely. But I also thought it was time to stop relying on my uncle and start living on my own. I never told Nancy about my upbringing or past. So, I thought we would continue to live a life unrelated to the gang. With that in mind, our peaceful days passed by leisurely. Then, one day, an unexpected person visited my restaurant. "You look well, Tony. It's been a while." My uncle's son, Tony, had grown up in the 20 years, and now he was the gang's underboss. "It's been about 20 years since we last met. I have something I want to tell you today." With that preface, Tony shared something with me. "No way, I can't believe this." "It's up to you to decide what to do next. I'll be going now." I was too shocked by what I had just heard to move. But somehow, I managed to move my unsteady legs and see Tony off. Then, Tony showed a timid expression, like that of a small child. Even if you think that time will come, it's still scary when it does. If anything happens, contact me immediately, Tony, you're important family to me. As I encouraged him with a pat on the shoulder, Tony regained his cheerfulness and left the restaurant with a bright smile. I was concerned about what Tony had told me, but I was soon faced with an even more pressing issue of my own. Nancy's attitude had gradually become colder. When we first got married, she used to prepare delicious meals every day and wait for me to come home. I was truly happy to be welcomed by her smile. But as half a year, then a year passed, Nancy began to neglect her household duties. Our conversations became perfunctory, and at times, she would ignore me completely when I spoke to her. She would leave meals and laundry undone, withdraw money from my account without permission, dress up flamboyantly like she was still single, and go out at all hours without any regard for day or night. Not knowing when she would return, I tried emailing her, but her address had been changed, and I couldn't reach her. When I tried calling her, it seemed like she had blocked my number. There wasn't even a ring, and we were completely out of touch. Since she would return late at night, our lifestyles became completely misaligned as I had to be up early for work. After living like strangers within our own home for about 3 months, I found staying in our empty, messy house unbearable and started coming home as late as possible. However, that day, there happened to be fewer customers, and I let the part-time staff go home early. Realizing there wouldn't be any more customers, I decided to head home earlier than usual. Upon opening the front door and seeing Nancy's high heels, I thought it was rare for her to be home. But at the same time, I noticed an unfamiliar pair of men's shoes next to hers, which made my heart start pounding. I broke out in a cold sweat, my body heated up, but strangely, my nerves became sharper. I immediately suspected infidelity, but I also considered the possibility that she might just have a friend over, so I decided not to go to the living room and instead headed upstairs to my room. But as I quietly entered the house, I heard Nancy and her companion talking loudly. I thought I married a rich man, but he turned out to be a total dud. But he's a boss, right? Owning several restaurants should be good enough. The person she was talking to was a man, and someone I didn't know. But his restaurants are just in this area, and so mediocre, it's disgusting how he limps when he walks. You are so much younger and prettier than him, Nancy. It's a waste to be with someone like that. Why don't you leave him? To the man's words, Nancy laughed heartily in response. But I hate working for a living now. I want to make my husband work while I have fun and live freely with you, Gary. As Nancy laughed out loud, the man named Gary also joined in with a coarse laugh. But you married him, so you must have liked him at some point, right? Stop joking. I never liked that shabby man. I thought he had money because he owned popular restaurants, so I was just a little nice to him, and he proposed on his own. Hearing Nancy's words, I felt a deep, cold weight in my chest. I had never imagined that Nancy thought of me in such a way, even though we had been together all this time. What a terrible woman. Using your partner's wealth while cheating on him with me. I've been getting bored, so I've been completely ignoring him, waiting for him to bring up breaking up. I'm planning to squeeze as much money out of him as possible for alimony. This was the gist of Nancy and Gary's conversation. In other words, Nancy had planned this from the beginning, marrying me for my wealth. Shocked beyond words, I stood frozen at the entrance, listening to their cheerful conversation. But I couldn't just keep listening forever. Before I knew it, quite some time had passed since I entered the house. Feeling that I needed to settle this, I bravely stepped inside and flung open the living room door. Hey, I need an explanation for this. This scene that unfolded before me was exactly what I had anticipated. Nancy was in the midst of an affair with a man named Gary. Surprised by my sudden appearance, Nancy just kept muttering in shock, "Huh, why are you here? How long have you been home?" While Nancy was visibly shaken, Gary, on the other hand, looked at me with a defiant smirk. Hey, you are supposed to knock before entering, man." With a smug grin plastered on his face, Gary casually moved away from Nancy. Seeing Gary's composed demeanor, Nancy seemed to be influenced by him as well. Forgetting her earlier panic, she calmly adjusted her hair and retorted with a defiant look, "What do you mean? It's exactly as you see. Is there a need for an explanation?" At their attitude, I felt even heavier in my heart. "So, it's true. You never really loved me from the start." "Love? Of course not. Why would someone young and cute like me get close to an old man like you?" She burst out laughing loudly. "Did you really think you were loved all this time? You must have been very happy in your delusion. I just wanted to marry a rich man because I didn't want to work." After saying that, Nancy deliberately snuggled up to Gary. "When I was looking for a suitable marriage partner, I found you, who looked like you could be easily deceived. You own several restaurants, and I thought I could ingratiate myself with you, especially since you have a physical disadvantage. Nancy here says so too. Stop deluding yourself that you were loved. Just pay up quietly and get lost." Interrupted by Gary, I couldn't hold back and retorted, "Why should I be the one to pay? It's obviously for the alimony. Apologize for the mental anguish you've caused by marrying a young and beautiful woman like Nancy." What they were saying was absurd. Nancy, acting as if it didn't concern her, leaned against Gary and twirled her hair. Unable to bear the sight of her, I muttered disdainfully, "The one who suffered mental anguish is me. I'll be the one demanding alimony from you too." "What did you say? Don't you dare talk back to me. I'm a mafia, from the Hawthorne Group, no less. We're a big deal around here." Gary advanced on me, his nostrils flaring with anger. However, I was taken aback by the name he mentioned. "Are you really from the Hawthorne Group?" "You doubt me? Don't mess with me. I'm Gary from the Hawthorne Group." Gary glared at me, grinding his teeth and putting force into his words. In the next moment, I pleaded with Gary, "Please, take me to your group." "Huh? You want to join our group?" Gary looked bewildered for a moment, then scoffed irritably. "An old man like you wanting to become a mafia now is just a nuisance. If you're really set on it, you should at least bring some money first." "I'll pay, but first, could you take me to the Hawthorne Group?" By this time, I had completely forgotten about Nancy. Knowing that Gary was a member of the Hawthorne Group, all I could think about was meeting the boss. As I kept insisting, Nancy murmured in disgust, "What's with this guy? So lame." But I couldn't care less about that. I'm not sure how much time passed as I continued to plead. Gary sighed in annoyance. "Fine, follow me right now." Saying that, Gary took Nancy and me to the car. In the car, Nancy mocked me multiple times. "You're in your 40s and want to become a mafia. You can't even walk properly. How could you be of any use?" But Nancy meant nothing to me now. Thinking simply that I would divorce her once everything was settled, I patiently waited to arrive at the group's location. "We're here. I'll go talk to my brother, so you go buy me a coffee in the meantime." Understood. I left the large gate of the group's compound and quickly went around to buy coffee. Returning to the compound, I met Gary just as he was coming back to the entrance. As soon as I handed him the coffee, his face twisted in anger. "With this cheap coffee, you think you can join the group? Old man, don't underestimate the Hawthorne Group." I'm sorry. As I apologized, Gary threw it at me. Then, perhaps hearing Gary's loud voice, other members of the group came out to see what was happening. "Hey Gary, what's all this commotion? This old man says he wants to join a group now. but he can't even buy a proper coffee, so I was just setting him straight. Hearing Gary's words, the member frowned slightly and looked at me. You didn't have to make such a fuss. Ha, have I seen you somewhere before? The member who was scolding Gary peered into my face and started to ponder. Who could it be? Ah. Suddenly, the member shouted and turned pale, rushing back inside. He quickly returned, bringing with him a group of executives. They were all tough-looking men, and Nancy, as well as Gary, turned pale, wondering what was happening. Gentlemen, what brings you all here together? You. How did you come to meet him? With that shout, one of the executives grabbed Gary. The other executives turned pale and began to apologize to me. We're terribly sorry, Big Brother Tom. Our idiot has caused you a great disrespect. No, it's okay. Seeing me speak to the executives as equals, Gary turned red and started to rant. It was this old man who asked me. He wanted to join a group, so I just brought him here. This man here, he's a legendary mafia. Without him, the Hawthorne group would have been long gone. Upon hearing the executive's words, both Gary and Nancy were dumbfounded and couldn't grasp the situation. The executive glared at the bewildered Gary and began to explain. He, 20 years ago, risked his life to save our boss. This old man did. What do you mean? Finally changing his attitude towards me, I took the opportunity to explain further to Gary. This is the home I grew up in. I used to be a mafia too. We became mafia after he had already left this house. It's an honor to see your face again after such a long time. The executive then spoke in a lowered voice. Did you come today to meet the boss, by any chance? Yeah, Tony came to see me the other day and explained the situation, but my uncle didn't seem willing to let me in here, so I was in trouble. In fact, I had found out that my uncle had a heart condition and was given only 6 months to live. He was advised to undergo surgery, but the success rate was only 40%. Tony had told me this, and I wanted to see my uncle right away. But Tony shook his head and said that my uncle wanted me to grasp a normal happiness and never to re-enter the mafia life. My father always regretted what happened to you, Tom. He felt sorry and wanted you to live a happy life. Given this background, even if I had approached the group directly, I probably wouldn't have been allowed in due to my uncle's instructions. That's when Gary, who turned out to be an incidental adulterer from the Hawthorne group, appeared, and I fought to seek his cooperation. Upon learning everything, Gary trembled and began to apologize. I'm so sorry. I had no idea about any of this. Please forgive me. His repeated apologies, so loud they might have grated the ground, seemed to annoy someone because more people came out from the back. It was Tony, the underboss himself. Seeing me, Tony's eyes widened in surprise. Big Brother Tom, how did you get in here? By chance, I found someone willing to help. As the executives explained the situation to Tony, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. Huh? Big Brother Tom got cheated on, huh? Well, guess this is my limit as a man. Tony frowned even more at my nonchalant laugh. That's nonsense. There's no one more manly than you, Big Brother Tom. So, what will you do about that man? Before I could answer, one of the executives stepped forward. There's no need to bother the underboss with this. Gary will be expelled. He's tarnished the group's name, and he'll have to take full responsibility. With that, the executive took the now subdued Gary and disappeared somewhere. Then Nancy chimed in from the side. Desperately trying to charm me, she began to plead for forgiveness, doing her best to persuade me. I have nothing to do with this, right? It was just an affair, wasn't it? Affairs are unacceptable, mafia or not. Nancy shrank back at Tony's vehement anger, which caused a vein to bulge on his forehead. That's when I stepped forward, restraining Tony, and faced Nancy. If it was just an affair, maybe I would share some of the blame, but you've been scheming from before we even got married, haven't you? That is. She must have remembered admitting that she married me for my money. Nancy began to sweat and frantically looked around for an escape. But you also hid the fact that you came from a mafia background. That makes us even, doesn't it? Certainly, it was wrong of me to hide my past, but you were trying to deceive me for money. Isn't that much worse than hiding being a mafia? At my words, Nancy just hung her head and started to cry quietly, unable to respond. That's when Tony stepped in. You really did a number on Tom, didn't you? Don't think you'll get off easy for this. The calmness of his voice somehow made the silence even more pronounced. Ever since our uncle fell, Tony had been effectively running the organization internally as the de facto leader. Thus, Tony's words carried the weight of a leader's, and everyone obeyed. Take her away. At Tony's command, the members took Nancy away. I later received the divorce papers, but that was the last time I saw Nancy in person. I'll leave the rest to you. Leaving those words behind, I started walking towards my uncle's room. My uncle was lying in a large room, quietly closing his eyes. Uncle. Tom, I told you not to come. You're free now. You can live your life. Forget about me. Unable to bear hearing my uncle's stifled voice, I knelt down and grabbed his hand. The first day we met, he patted my head with his large, warm, and strong hand. Now, that same hand feels thin, cold, and considerably smaller. Uncle, you once said you regretted not meeting my mother before she passed away. That's... My uncle seemed to choke on his words, reminded of his own past statements. I gripped his hand tighter. I would surely regret it if I didn't come and see you. That's why I came. I'm living freely. You got me there. My uncle replied with a hearty laugh. And so, I decided to stay by my uncle's side, from his hospitalization through to surgery. On the day of the surgery, Tony and I went to encourage him, and the surgery was a success. Now, he's slowly regaining his lost strength and spending his days peacefully. Afterward, Gary was excommunicated and lost the right to use the organization's name. Without the ability to return to a normal life, he wandered from job to job until his funds ran dry. When he applied for welfare, it was denied due to strict laws against organized crime. Eventually, without any money left, he had to beg for loans from associates, and unable to pay the interest, he went bankrupt. As a result, he's apparently being made to do physical labor at sites related to the organization. He works to the point of exhaustion every day, gradually paying off his debt bit by bit. As for Nancy, it seems she was forced to work in a nightclub. Due to embezzlement from her affairs and the substantial debt she accrued for my alimony, she reportedly works tirelessly from morning till night without a day off, serving customers. Because of the exhaustion, she aged rapidly. Although she's still in her 30s, she looks almost 50. Once her appearance deteriorated, she was relegated to cleaning, being worked to the bone. As for me, my uncle was finally discharged from the hospital, and we held a celebration at the organization. Having been away for 20 years, I could see how much my uncle had aged, and it brought a lump to my throat. Thank you for saving me. I'm truly grateful you took me in that day. Expressing my sincere gratitude, my uncle just nodded deeply without saying a word. He decided to pass the leadership to Tony, and he retired. For his retirement, he chose to help out at the restaurant I run. He always had a passion for coffee, and now he serves as a taciturn barista, offering delicious coffee to our customers. Sometimes, Tony visits the shop between his duties, and we compare coffees, enjoying satisfying moments. I plan to continue repaying the kindness my uncle showed me in the past and live peacefully.